Today we've got Star Wars versus Harry Potter. And we've got, of course, for Star Wars, who else could it be but Mr. Bush? Give him a round of applause. And speaking on behalf of Harry Potter with his robes and wand, Mr. Schmidt. Give him a round of applause. So we decided who's going first, right? Mr. Schmidt's going to go first. What's going to happen is he's going to give his speech. Then Mr. Bush is going to give his speech. And you guys are going to vote based on the strength of their argument who you think is the winner. So to start us off, give a big round of applause for Mr. Schmidt.
All right, is this on? We're good? Okay, here goes. If young Craig Schmidt saw adult me up here arguing against Star Wars, young me would cling to whatever was near him, cry a bit, and then say, "That's not true, that's impossible!" But it is true, because in time since my childhood, Star Wars has crashed into the side of the Death Star and lost what once made it awesome. But then Harry Potter came by, picked up that awesomeness, and whisked away with it on a Nimbus 2000. In keeping with Harry Potter lore, during this debate, I must tell no lies, but I solemnly swear that my opponent is up to no good, because he will try to convince you that the Boba Fett TV show was any good at all. But he would be lying, because it wasn't. It was an epic fail for Star Wars. While it truly saddens me, because I want to keep on being a loving Star Wars fan, Star Wars has, more often than not recently, become predictable, boring, badly written, and just a special effects extravaganza, while Harry Potter remains truly captivating in every respect. So keep in mind, we are debating entire franchises here. That includes spin-offs and loads of other material. So the one question I had when I got this assignment from Mr. Bush was, well, how do we even do that? But to me, the answer is you're looking for quality, not quantity. If it was reversed, and we were simply looking at the amount of stuff out there, Star Wars would definitely win. There's just way more Star Wars stuff out there than Harry Potter-related stuff. But that's exactly the problem. See, Star Wars proves that more often becomes less because it brings the average down. Star Wars has turned out mediocrity after mediocrity, filling up on material that is either bad or maybe just okay, instead of always great. Therefore, the franchise's quality is weighed down in the same way that a bunch of 70% on quizzes will weigh down your A grade into a B. Meanwhile, Harry Potter remains at the A level because it doesn't have nearly as many bad entries as Star Wars does. The thing is, the overall quality of a Harry Potter entry is, on average, much better than the average entry for the Star Wars franchise. Harry Potter has more quality. So let me defend that by talking about characters and also storytelling. So, starting with characters, great characters are complex, they have dimensions, they're often a mix of good and bad, though sometimes we do like someone who's just a total badass who's either good or bad, that's fine. But they have motives that make sense, they have an interesting backstory, they change in a meaningful way, and yet they still surprise us. Do Star Wars characters do that? Well, yes, some of them do. And here's a list. Luke, Han, Vader, Lando, Ahsoka, Rey, kind of, though why she takes the name Skywalker makes no sense. The Mandalorian, Andor, hopefully, I'm hoping that season 2 will be just as good as the first season. All right, but that's kind of it. And then if you think about great Harry Potter characters, it's literally all of them. We can all relate to Harry. He's a nobody who has so much potential. He's been misunderstood and underestimated. He's had a hard childhood. We definitely care about him. And as he grows up, he wrestles with right and wrong, who he wants to become, guilt for the mistakes that he makes. He struggles with accepting responsibility for a power he doesn't even want. He's a good but flawed person. And he changes in ways that are authentic. If that stuff happened to us, we'd end up getting scared and angry too. But hopefully, like Harry, we keep on striving to do what is right. And we'd stumble a few times too. His friends Ron and Hermione grow with him and are gloriously entertaining. Dumbledore is a wise wizard, but he's got a complex history. Sirius Black and Remus Lupin appear evil at first, but they defy stereotypes. And if you want to talk about character growth, does anyone remember Neville Longbottom? Really, that guy's got amazing character growth. The same is true for Hagrid and the rest of the Hogwarts staff, the entire Weasley family. There's Dobby and Hedwig. These are all fantastic characters, and they grow, and they get more complex as the series progresses, except maybe for Hedwig. And when Harry Potter characters were in trouble or died, I cared. It was tense. I cared more about the death of an owl in Harry Potter than in any of the deaths of any of the Star Wars characters created since the original films. And that's pretty pathetic from a storytelling standpoint. And I haven't even started talking about the bad guys in Harry Potter, who have probably the most depth of all. Really, I'm talking about Draco Malfoy and Severus Snape, both of whom you love to hate at first. But by the end, my God, I actually care about those guys. I feel their pain and understand where they're coming from. I have empathy for them. Do you have any empathy for any Star Wars villain? Do they have depth? No. Sure, I wanted so badly for a meaningful, interesting, and dramatic transition from Anakin Skywalker to Darth Vader. But wow, it sucked. He just one day starts killing children and he thinks that's going to be okay with his nice, peaceful wife? I don't think so. George Lucas literally had 20 years to figure out a good story, and that's what we get? We deserve better. So thank God for Harry Potter and the return of good storytelling. Now let's compare the quality of Star Wars stories to Harry Potter stories. Okay, the original stuff in both, great, but keep in mind that Harry Potter has 7 novels, and each and every one of them is fantastic. And the movie adaptations are good too. Each Harry Potter story is wildly creative, has a good mystery, there are fun characters, there's real drama and tension that you can feel, and they're told very well. Each story has surprising twists and turns, but every turn still makes sense because of the great care taken in the storytelling. Nothing is just thrown in to be cool while actually being meaningless, unlike so much of Star Wars lately. I mean, what was even the plot of The Rise of Skywalker? And that was supposed to be the conclusion to 8 previous films? It's terrible. The last trilogy was a mess because no one knew how the story should go, how it should end, who the bad guys were, or anything. Meanwhile, the final Harry Potter book, The Deathly Hallows, is shockingly excellent and wraps up that series perfectly. Harry Potter stories got better as they go, while Star Wars stories definitely do not. So while all the main Harry Potter stories are fantastic and the ending is more than satisfying, you can't say that all the main Star Wars movies are fantastic or that it ends well. And then you add in the bad or just so-so Star Wars TV shows, and the Star Wars franchise gets even more bogged down. Honestly, I can win this argument by mentioning one simple thing, and that is the 1978 Star Wars Holiday Special. Don't know what I'm talking about? Ask anyone alive back then. It happened, I saw it. The fact that that abomination was even made is enough to prove that Harry Potter has more quality than Star Wars, period. It drops Star Wars ranking down by at least 10%. But the real problem with the Star Wars franchise is that while some of it is great, and a lot of it is good, some of it is actually bad, and the vast majority of the stuff that's come out in the last decade is just sort of meh. Meanwhile, besides the totally and amazing main Harry Potter stories, we just have 3 Fantastic Beasts prequels and The Play the Lost Child. And that's really it. It's just 4 other stories, the end. And while those 4 stories admittedly are not as good as the original source material, it's still a much better average than the Star Wars franchise. Star Wars' greatness has been so diluted and watered down by the meh entries that it barely has any flavor anymore. But Harry Potter's flavor is still rich, complex, and as delicious as butterbeer. So do the math, which admittedly they don't teach at Hogwarts. Harry Potter wins because its content is, on average, of much higher quality than the average Star Wars entry. And yes, young me is crying and angry right now, but young me is going to get over it because what he doesn't know is that Harry Potter is still in his future.
All right, let's give it up for Professor Schmidt. And give it up for LHS's own Jedi Master, Mr. Bush. Let's hear it for him.
All right, strap in. We're going to make the jump to light speed. In the 1970s, movies began to reflect people's increasingly jaded worldview and distrust our institutions. Our protagonists were faced with corruption within their own organizations, or in some cases, they themselves were morally compromised. Films increasingly became more mature and cynical. And with the exception of a few gems, movies for kids were goofy, slapstick-ridden affairs that were instantly forgettable. Even the Disney animation giant was in its decline. And science fiction movies? They were often of poor quality. And those that did achieve success frequently centered around dystopian events. However, in May of 1977, a movie started what would become a monumental shift in cinema and culture, opened with 10 little words. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, Now, let me be clear. Star Wars did not save the world or resolve all of society's wrongs, but it did have and continues to have a positive and profound impact on entertainment and people. Dare I say, it was a force for good. So how has Star Wars revolutionized cinema? Well, like any artist, George Lucas had a vision of what Star Wars would look like. Unfortunately, effects departments were in a state of decline. None of the existing technologies could achieve the kind of dynamic, kinematic motion that George saw in his head. The group of talented people he brought together to form his own special effects company literally invented new ways to film effects for movies. And with every subsequent Star Wars movies, George asked these effects artisans to elevate their creativity and technology. From miniature and motion-controlled cameras to CG characters and digital sets, Star Wars has always pushed what is possible to the next level. Each success further legitimized the value of special and visual effects and brought about a resurgence in effects companies. Wanting the audience to experience all these advances in the best possible way, George even leveraged the impact of Star Wars to motivate theaters to adopt many of the sound and projection advancements that you now enjoy today. And the impact of Star Wars doesn't end at the cinema. Star Wars licensing and merchandising was and still is everywhere. The original Kenner Star Wars line was a monster hit, not because it was considered collectible, but because kids wanted to play in that galaxy, to use their imagination and create new stories. Some of those kids kept playing as adults and became filmmakers themselves. Walk down any Lego toy aisle today and you will see sets based on countless IPs, from Marvel to, yes, Harry Potter. But you know what was the first licensed property for which Lego made sets? Yeah, Star Wars. And in 1987, the Disney parks opened the first ride that was not based on one of their own intellectual properties, Star Tours. This Star Wars-themed motion simulator ride was groundbreaking and laid the track for all of the immersive rides that we see today. To cap it all off, Star Wars holds the Guinness World Record for most successful merchandising franchise. So, we've seen that Star Wars elevates artistry and presentation of cinema. It inspires creatives, and it has become an entertainment and merchandising juggernaut. These things don't happen by accident. What about Star Wars makes it such an original cultural phenomenon, even now, almost 50 years after its release? Lucas realized the direction that cinema was taking in the 1970s. In response, he wanted to make a movie that dared to be a traditional story of good versus evil. In his own words, "When I did Star Wars, I consciously set about to recreate myths and the classic mythological motifs, and I wanted to use those motifs to deal with issues that existed today." George found that much of what he had written in his first draft aligned closely with Professor Joseph Campbell's theory of the monomyth and the hero's journey. Campbell had analyzed the literature of many cultures and extracted commonalities in the mythic journeys of their heroes. He argued that these unifying concepts connect to deep-seated aspects of the human psyche. Partly because of these connections, Star Wars was embraced by people all around the world and from all walks of life. Why did people spend so much time lined up around blocks to see a movie? For 2 hours, they could escape their daily lives. They could feel good. They could believe in heroes. They could aspire to something more. And they went to experience this again and again. One of the most iconic moments in all Star Wars films, and I would argue in all of film history, sees Luke Skywalker gazing wordlessly at the setting twin suns of Tatooine as John Williams' music swells. We know exactly how he feels. We have been there. We have all wondered, at one time or another, what am I here for? What are my dreams? What lies ahead for me? These questions resonate with us, and Star Wars, at its best, has always embodied these questions without having to ask them out loud. Perhaps the greatest praise Star Wars ever received happened when George had the privilege to show Joseph Campbell his original film trilogy in one day. Campbell's reaction when the final film ended. You know, I thought real art had stopped with Picasso, Joyce, and Mann. Now I know it hasn't. And since those early years, the mythology of Star Wars has expanded greatly, possibly even beyond George's dreams. 9 saga films and 2 standalone movies have been released. Animated and live-action television series have expanded existing narratives and introduced new ones. Hundreds of novels and comics have been written spanning thousands of years in the Star Wars galaxies. Have they all been successful? No. Have they found ways to speak differently to different people? Yes. Part of the hero's journey is choosing your own path, and the paths available to you in Star Wars are as diverse as the people who choose them. Now, if you've hung with me this far, you'll notice that in this writer's bout, I have not raised Star Wars up by tearing Harry Potter down. If Star Wars teaches us anything, it's that we all have a light side and a dark side, and we are free to choose which path to follow. Much as George bucked the trend of 70s cinema to offer a brighter, more hopeful path, I hope to show you that an elevating one thing does not require diminishing another. Fandom thrives when we avoid a world of us versus them. Or in Star Wars parlance, I've chosen to take the high ground. I will, however, end with one little thing. Despite what you have seen and heard here, at LHS, we have a distinguished LHS Jedi Council of teachers who are Star Wars fans. And Mr. Schmidt is a die-hard, bona fide, certified, t-shirt wearing member of that council.
All right, here's the both of you. Now this is your chance to vote. We're gonna vote by applause. So whoever you agree with more, whoever you think won, you're gonna cheer as loud as you can. All right, so give it up if you think Mr. Schmidt won and Harry Potter is better than Star Wars. There was applause. And give it up for Mr. Bush if you think he wins and Star Wars is better. I think the word is clear. That was a great rhetorical device at the end to take the high road and point out that you're taking the high road. I have a question or two. I don't know if you guys need to come to this mic. When you care about something so much, like you care about Star Wars or Harry Potter, is it hard for you? Is it harder to write because you have so much to say about it, or did it just come easily to you?
Yes. Yeah, what was hard for me was paring it down to as short as I could make it. When we opened it up to anything and everything related to the franchise, I just, there was so much I wanted to say. There was so much I was like, I could educate them about the whole history of Star Wars. I'm like, cut that down. So yeah, when you love something that much, you invest in it, and yeah, it's sometimes hard to pare it down.
I totally agree, and I agree with everything he said in his thing on Star Wars, by the way. So the problem was there's just so much, and we were supposed to limit it to about, I don't know, 6 minutes or something. So I could have talked about just, but I don't want to do spoilers too much, for Harry Potter stuff, but like why those stories are so excellent, and really, like you're talking about how Star Wars, became this thing of being like cultural icon. I think you could say the same thing for Harry Potter, but I didn't even bring that up, like There are just too many other things. Plus, I wanted to take the low road and attack, because as much as of a Star Wars fan as I am, I get really disappointed when it lets me down. And so I vented a little bit on that, yeah.
And yes, I have been let down by parts of Star Wars too, but that's the thing. I think, and that was part of my message, I know people in my life that something in Star Wars I don't like, they actually love. So who am I to say that something in there didn't speak to them? So that's kind of where I took my message.
I thought you were going to say you have people in your life who've let you down and you still love them, and it was going to get a little real. But one last question for you, Mr. Bush. Is Star Wars sci-fi?
No.
All right, short answer.
Space fantasy. Yeah, there's a reason why it starts with a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. It's meant to be like a fairy tale.
All right, well, give it up for him one more time. Thank you, Mr. Bush. All right, so for our featured guest, he is a guitarist, motivational speaker, and advocate whose remarkable story inspires others to live their best life. His platform, Pete's Diary, combines his passion for music and storytelling in order to spread messages of resilience, self-acceptance, and authenticity. He has been honored as a champion of hope by Global Genes and as a patient of courage by the American Society of Plastic Surgeons. He is an ambassador for Children's Craniofacial Association and was featured in the May 2023 issue of Guitar World magazine. He is also an LHS alum. Please welcome Peter Dankelson.
Hello. All right. How are you guys doing today? You all doing good? Yeah. Awesome. No, it's really great to be back here today. Great to be back here at LHS. Yes, hello. My name is Peter Dankelson. I'm a LHS alum, class of 2019. It's really, really great to be with you guys today. And so, since graduating, I've released an EP and an album with my band, Pete's Diary. And the album was really fun because it was written and recorded in Los Angeles. It was a really fun experience. It was recorded with Keith Nelson, who was one of the founding members and guitar players of the band Bucciero. So that was a really fun experience getting to work with him. You could find all the music on streaming platforms. Then I've also published my autobiography. My mom is here with me today, and she is the co-author. She also wrote a picture book about how I learned to embrace my differences, and that's the main thing that I would like to share with you all today. My book is called How I Learned to Rock My Life. And what that means is how I learned to live the best life, is how to live my best life and to be the best version of myself. It's a practice that anybody can use, and it costs nothing, but it pays back in really big ways. And I know that it works because it's why I'm talking with you guys today. And I also know it works because it's how I've gotten to share the stage with some of my guitar heroes. And I also know that it works because it's how I persevered through almost 40 surgeries. I was born with a complex medical condition called golden heart syndrome. And golden heart basically is a collection of birth defects that occur together, but the cause is still unknown. For me, that included a cleft palate, problems with my back and neck, missing my left ear, missing one kidney, missing parts of my jaw, missing muscle in my left thumb, and I think you get the idea. I'm just missing a bunch of stuff at this point. And growing up, I wished more than anything that I could look like everybody else. When I was 5 years old, I asked my parents if we could go to an ear store for my birthday. And that was all that I wanted for my 5th birthday. I wanted a big ear. It wasn't like a bike or a new toy or a video game or something like that. I wanted a body part. So I ended up getting this prosthetic ear, and I absolutely loved it because it made me feel normal. And it was great because nobody pointed or stared anymore, and it made me feel very good about myself. It started this cycle of self-acceptance that built up my confidence. And that cycle kept growing and repeating in my early years, and I was fortunately never bullied at school. For middle school, I went to a private school in Michigan, and it was great because, it was a K to 8, so we all kind of grew up together, it was really like a family. It was really great. And then, don't forget about the picture too much. Big turning point in my life was we moved from Michigan to Illinois when I started high school, and that's how I ended up here at Libertyville. And I absolutely loved my years here. Don't let the picture fool you. But, with moving, I was not happy. So walking into Libertyville for the first time, where I didn't know anybody, was absolutely terrifying. I did everything I could to try and make myself invisible at first. I kept my head down. I copied everybody else and put in earbuds, in between periods. I wore my prosthetic ear every day, and it was working. A day turned into a week into months, and it was all great until one day the inevitable eventually happened. My prosthetic started to slip off one day after a particularly sweaty gym class. And with the prosthetic, it adheres with a special glue, so if it gets bumped or sweaty, it could fall off. When I was younger and this happened, my parents and I, we would just laugh it off. So I followed their example, and I tried to have fun with it. The jokes really practically write themselves. So I have it hanging off of my head, in this picture on the left, just scared a ton of people in the hallway, And then I love doing that on Halloween too, by the way, walking around, I kind of have it hanging off of my head. And then in this picture up here, to all my guitar player friends, please watch your volume cranked. Marshalls could blow your ears off. Especially with the amp I have now, that's very much true. And I wouldn't have it any other way. So with that prosthetic here, I don't wear it anymore because I'm okay with how I look. And I get comments all the time from people that say I should grow out my hair like a real rock star. And I get it, but I honestly like to keep it short. Because to me, what's more rock and roll than showing off my surgery scars? I think it's pretty cool. So feeling more confident inspired me to take action. I joined some clubs here, like Best Buddies, and I even tried fencing my freshman year. But during my freshman year, I was listening to music a ton, and that eventually is what led to me picking up the guitar. So really, it was hearing AC/DC for the first time that really lit that spark for me. Luckily, my dad had an old guitar and an amp from his high school years, and he showed me how to tune it and plug it in, and then basically just said, have fun. So I went on YouTube and started looking up chords and lessons and some of my favorite songs. And probably the thing that I love most about playing the guitar is how I could pour all of my feelings into it. There's always different emotions, and let me actually show you what I mean. All right, I'll try and talk as loud as I can. I'm pretty soft-spoken, so bear with me here. But, I think one of the fun things with the guitar, like I said, there's always different emotions that you can get out of it, right? So, say you're feeling happy and excited. You're having a really great day, right? You could play something that reflects that. You could play something that's got a little bit of a groove to it, makes you feel good. It's got a little bit of a bounce to it, right? A little bit of a boogie. And then it could be the flip side. It could be something a little bit, if you're not feeling too good, you could play something a little bit more emotional and sad. And then also, the guitar is definitely, especially the electric guitar, it's a great way to get out any aggression. So if you're, having a fight with your sibling, because I'm sure that doesn't happen all the time, right? It could be anything. If you're feeling angry or upset about something, you can definitely channel some aggression through the electric guitar. So, point being, there's just always different range of emotions that you could channel through it. No matter how you're feeling, it's always there for you. So another really exciting thing that happened not too long after I started playing was the School of Rock opened up right here in Libertyville. It opened up about a year after I started playing. So it was really exciting because it gave me performance opportunities. Like after I graduated, that summer I got to tour with the School of Rock All-Stars, and that was a really fun experience. We got to play Lollapalooza. That was pretty cool. And it was great because I got to make some really great friends, and I had a lot of fun. But also, being in a band made me want to hear better. A guitar player like Eddie Van Halen, for example, Eddie recorded pretty much most of his guitar tracks, at least on the early Van Halen albums. He recorded them on the left side. So I would have to flip my headphones around if I really wanted to hear what Eddie was doing. So basically, I wanted to hear in stereo. I wanted to be able to hear both channels, right and left. I always knew that getting a cochlear implant was an option, but I was really scared to go through with the surgery, and I was scared that people would stare at it. So at the end of my freshman year of high school, I ended up getting the surgery to get the cochlear implant, and I was second guessing myself, the day of the procedure, but I'm honestly so glad that I went through with it. It's been a complete life changer for me to hear conversations in loud environments, like restaurants or the hallway. And getting this implant gave me the courage to face an even bigger and unexpected surgery. I needed a trach at birth to help me breathe, and doctors removed that trach tube when I was 4 years old, but the hole in my neck never closed. So after 19 years, I finally got approval to have it closed, and that was great news. But then I found out that closing it meant having my airway completely reconstructed. Deep down, I knew that closing it was the best option for my long-term health, but of course, I was terrified. I was very, very scared. And I could have left it open. But I chose to face my fear and go through with the surgery, and it was a very difficult recovery. I spent about a week in ICU on a ventilator, and to get through it mentally, I would try to tell myself things like, this won't last forever, and this is going to be worth it to be able to breathe better. And I reminded myself, too, that everybody in that ICU was fighting a very different and difficult battle. My recovery, I understood, was tougher than some, but I also understood that I had it a little bit easier than others, too. Kind of puts you in your place a bit. So those are a few examples of how I learned to rock my life. By staying positive, overcoming my fears, and pursuing my passion for music. And this is a practice that you can use, too. It costs nothing, but it pays back in really big ways. Repeating this circle over and over gives you a happier and more positive outlook, quality relationships, and new opportunities and experiences. The easiest way to start is by checking in with that little voice that's inside of your head. What you think about yourself, the words that you use to describe yourself, they can either build you up or they can tear you down. So find a favorite quote or a motto that motivates and inspires you. Put it somewhere that you'll see it every day. Or better yet, you could even write your own. So that's what I did. I chose mine as rocking my life as a metalhead. I mean, it kind of makes me laugh, and it makes me feel very good about myself. But also, in addition to that, it shows what I've been through. It's like, this is an x-ray from quite a few years ago of my head. But if you look up here, that white circle is the cochlear implant magnet. And then right down here, that white diagonal line is the jaw implant that I had for my jaw surgery. And then underneath that are plates and screws from the jaw surgery on my right side. And then there's some more hardware in the front there that I don't remember what that was from. I think it was something with the jaw surgery. But there's a lot going on in there. Another tool is checking your perspective. Your attitude about your life shapes how you live it. Do you think of yourself as a victim, of circumstance or as the hero of your story. So putting it this way, it's the difference between me thinking about myself as missing an ear is weird versus being different is cool. The first, isn't really that great. It makes me feel pretty bad about myself, and it makes me sound more like a victim. The second is so much more empowering. Another thing is practice gratitude. Instead of focusing on what you want, be content with what you have. And then take measured risks. If you're afraid to try something, ask yourself, what is the worst possible outcome and what is the best outcome? If you're okay with either, it's time to take a leap of faith. Then overcome adversity. I have no muscle in my left thumb, and I can't really use it that much to grip or, use it much at all. But I didn't quit playing. Instead, I figured out a way to play certain chords differently or try and adapt in my own way. And also, find a creative outlet that you enjoy. For me, obviously, that's playing guitar and music. But for you, it could be completely different. It could be cooking, gardening, writing, or drawing. So whatever that might be, this creative pursuit engages your mind to think differently, build connections, and it helps you to manage stress and anxiety. I could definitely speak for that with the guitar. With all the surgeries that I had when I was in high school, having the guitar to turn to helped me all the time. My last tip, though, is to have a sense of humor. You can't take life too seriously, and humor is such a great way to connect. And these are all ways to maximize your potential. Self-motivation, checking your perspective, practicing gratitude, taking measured risks, finding a creative hobby, and having a sense of humor. And this is how I've learned to rock my life, by using the tools in red to achieve the results in yellow. It's a process for living your best life. And I really hope today that I've inspired you to give it a try. Thank you.
All right, we've got a little bit of time for some questions or some possibly song requests if people want those.
Yeah, questions, requests. Yeah. Anybody got anything?
I have a quick question. I can get it started. You wrote a book with your mom, right? And how did that book come about? How did you end up writing that? How did you get that started?
It's interesting because, it's kind of a long story short. When COVID hit, I would share guitar videos on social media because there was nothing else to do at home, right? And then just over time, it started to get more of a following. So people knew the music, but they didn't know, the medical side of things. So the book was really a way to kind of talk about the medical side of things and that story that maybe not too many people knew about. But Pete's Diary, funny enough, it started as a journal that Mom had actually kept when I was born. And really, it was before like Facebook and social media and all that. So Mom would do these email updates. She'd write them in my voice, and she would send them out to, family and friends to keep everybody updated with how I was doing. So that's kind of how Pete's Diary started. But then, now it's kind of morphed into, a band and everything else. But it's kind of how all that came about.
Very cool. Any questions or song requests? You can play a lot of stuff.
Do you know any Alice in Chains songs?
Oh, Alice in Chains. You know what? I jammed it the other day. It's kind of a hidden gem. But there's a tune called Put You Down from the Facelift album. That was a really great riff that stood out to me right away. But I do know, it's been a while, but Them Bones, I'll have to tune this really.
The abbreviated version.
Yeah. Kind of. It's been a while, but it's something like that. Oh, I haven't played that one in quite a while.
He has played it at events.
I played it here one time.
Yeah. He's always nervous about messing it up.
I know.
Wants to be respectful. Anybody else?
We've got less than a minute. Oh, there's the bell, actually. So
Oh,
let's
there we go.
give Peter a hand.
Thank you.